The UK's climate of the 20th century has now gone, according to experts who say once extreme conditions are increasingly seen as normal. A new report from the Met Office says that in the warmest areas, the hottest day of the year is typically 4.5 degrees warmer than in the 30-year period to 1990. And the report warns that British infrastructure, housing, agriculture and health systems are based on a climate that no longer exists. The report's lead author says it shows climate change is upon us right now.
For many people, climate change has perhaps previously seemed something that's talked about scientists, but they maybe don't necessarily expect to see the impacts so much in their day-to-day lives. I think that is very much increasingly, people are experiencing climate change. And I think, this is because the way we experience this is through these extremes.
Well, I'm now joined by our weather presenter, Sarah Keith-Lucas. So, Sarah, what's the main takeaway from this report?
Well, I think that line that we just heard, that the climate of the 20th century has now gone, is a really shocking thing to hear, because it was the climate that most of us grew up with, remembering from when we were children as well. And what we would consider as really extreme back then is now really the norm, happening so much more regularly now. So in that previous climate from 1961 to 1990, in 1 in 5 years, we didn't see temperatures of 30 degrees at all. But this year, for instance, we've already had 25 days above 30 degrees, 10 of them the past 10 consecutive days. So this is really an annual stock take of where we are right now in terms of how our climate is changing, let alone the forecasts of how things are going to progress into the future.
And just how quickly are things changing with our climate in the UK?
Well, they are changing fast, certainly, especially in terms of the temperatures and the extremes. I've got a temperature map to show you, which shows just how much things have changed in that 30-year period. We had temperatures across the UK very rarely above an average of 11 degrees, but now they've shifted much further north. So yeah, I think we've got a graphic we can show. Perhaps it's not well. Here we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
that works.
Yes. So an average temperature of 11 degrees back between 1961 to 1990. It was just confined really to the far southeast, the London area. But now it's pushed its way much further north. So if you think about somewhere like Lancashire or the Vale of York, they've got the same sort of temperatures we would have seen in Greater London in that 30-year period between 1961 and 1990. So it's been a rapid increase in temperature. And what we're really seeing here is that those higher temperatures have pushed not only further north across the UK, but also uphill as well. So the very cold places, like the cold climates in the north of Scotland, in the mountains, they are disappearing. The cold spells are disappearing as well. So it's not just the heat that's an issue, but when we don't see the cold weather and the cold frosty conditions, it doesn't kill off the insects and the bugs that we'd traditionally seen when we get those colder spells happening through the year as well. So climate change really affecting all times of the year.
Indeed, and it's not just the air that's warmer, it's also the waters around the UK as well. What does the report say about our oceans?
Yeah, so this report also looked at our oceans and our rivers, as well as just what's happening in terms of the weather and the climate in the skies. And what they found, that actually we've seen more marine heatwave conditions in 2025, 297 days of heatwave conditions. That's more than we've ever seen before. And of course, it's not just the temperature of the sea that's continuing to push the air temperature up as well, but it is also sea level rise. Now, we hear about sea level rise in terms of climate change. Now, that's really accelerating. I can show you another graphic which tells us about how quickly the sea level has been rising. We haven't got that one, don't worry, but it's basically the past 30 years that we've seen a huge increase. Sea levels are now 20 centimetres higher than they were back in 1901. And it means that when we see storms affecting the UK with those higher sea levels, when we see high tides, we could see some more catastrophic coastal flooding down to the higher sea levels combined with our changing climate.
Sarah, thank you. That's our weather presenter, Sarah Keith-Lucas there.